So welcome everyone to Android Tech Talk. We have three awesome speakers today, and first we're going to start with Hassan Abid, a Google developer expert on Android and a tech lead at Belive. He's going to talk about the general overview of mobile development for Android apps. So let's just get on to it. Hassan, please.
We used to go to Google Developer Summit. That was happening in US, but this year unfortunately we couldn't go. But still, from comfort of our home, we can share our passion in something about Android with you guys. Previously about my Android experience, I worked with some apps. So this first app, KineMaster, is an Android video editing app. It has more than around 100 million downloads. Back 9 or 10 years ago, when we were starting this app, we had no idea that it can get very popular. But recently, although I'm not working on this app, but I saw this app has like so big user base. And then I worked on some other apps related to video streaming, live video. That's my background. But purely, most of the time I worked on Android, but at the same time, I had to do iOS, web, backend. Currently, I'm tech lead, so I take care of all the technical things in my team. So let's go to next slide. Okay, so today I'm just going to explain to you why Android and a little bit of like my Android journey, how I came into Android, and then tell you like how can you make an Android app. There are like so many technologies out there, and then a bit of touch on Kotlin, but I will leave it to Kira, who's the next speaker. She will deep dive into it. Next slide, please. Okay, so Android, I think first thing comes into my mind are, I mean, it will come in your mind. It's very easy to learn. It's as compared to some other technologies. At the same time, when you make an Android app, it's very easy to enter the market because you see many developing countries, especially also in Southeast Asia, then most of the people are using Android phones. So it's like very easy to penetrate. And the code base of Android operating system is open source. It means like millions of people are contributing it. So you should believe in this. I mean, if there are bugs, there will be so many people out there who can fix it. And it can evolve very quickly as well, because it's not just owned by one company, it's owned by people. So many open source developers, so many software developers around the world. And then Android has booming job prospects because you need an Android app everywhere, every time. So when you're launching a new company, new product, everything, Android is the first thing you'll think about is Android app. And then there are so many free apps, and it means like more apps. So there's tons of a ton of opportunity for Android developers. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just I got this kind of graph. So it shows like the market share of Android as of now is around 85%, but 4 years down the line, it will grow to 86.2%. So as compared to iOS and other devices, Android is just going to capture more and more market. So it's not like this coming to end. It's not like, I mean, there was time like, okay, Windows, let's say Windows XP are some like old devices, right, you were using. So they were going, there's going to be an end. No, it's like going to boom more and more. Next slide. Okay, so this is a survey from Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow, I think every developer know, and I think in your future, you will be searching a lot of things on Stack Overflow. So they had this kind of survey for platform. And you can see Android is the top mobile platform here. Linux, Windows, Docker, AWS, those are all server or OS technologies. Android is the top mobile development OS, and it's from all respondents. It's not from professional developers. Next slide, please. Okay, so for my case, I started Android development back in 2011. Frankly speaking, there was no online courses, very few resources. So what I did is like I started from developers.android.com. Then I also joined some offline community events. I was based in South Korea at that time, and I couldn't speak Korean, so it's hard to find some people who can speak English and do Android because I mean they're not comfortable with English. But I had to find some people, some friends online somehow to learn. But that was a bit difficult because there were some like limited resources. So it's most of the time it's your own struggle. So you have to just do by yourself and find mentors in more like offline settings. And then I was like starting this project in 2011. I kind of gave up because it was too difficult to get help from people. There was no concept of online community at that time. Okay, so I mean now I would say like as moving forward, right? So what I did is like I keep continuing struggling with Android, learn by myself. But in 2015, when there was like so many online courses, I also took those courses by myself. Later, I wanted to help other people, so I created an Android study group back in 2015, where I helped people to learn Android programming. So many of my friends who are working as web developers or they are like working in different fields, they wanted to learn about Android. So that's where we spent some time, 1 or 2 months, and studied. And for me also, I love to share with people what I learned. So I think this is one reason I kept learning, and this is where I am today. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is one speech I gave back in 2015 where I shared how I learned from Google as official online resources. Next slide. So, so this is the overall. This picture shows like how Android has evolved over the years. I think you can see it started from 2008. 2007. In 2007, we had our first Android device using an Android beta software. And then in 2008, we had official release of Android. Since then, Android is now 11 years old. This slide is from last year. And you can see like it keeps growing. I think you can take a time to remember all those names. It's very interesting. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay, so 10 years and now, and if you are imagining like how many active devices, Android devices out there, there are over 2.5 billion. This was last year, so maybe this year crossed 3 billion mark already. And there are more than 180 hardware manufacturers. Maybe bulk of them are in China, but still there are like so many. Next. Okay, so what's the status of Android as of now? Android 11.0 version, Android 11 released in September. And then we have Android Studio, which is the official ID, which you can use to make Android apps. That's Android 4.0. And Kotlin is the Google's preferred language of Android. You will find so many help from community, from Google's official resources in Kotlin. So you can do also Java, but Java more like is like just keeping the old libraries, but they are not building new libraries in Java. Next slide, please. So this is just showing like Android Studio. So Android Studio has evolved over the years. Now it's more like a very powerful tool to make Android apps, to analyze your Android apps, to optimize, find issues, make intuitive UIs. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think this I couldn't share, but it's just like a bit of more tools. So I think we can skip this slide. Next slide. Okay, so how to make an Android app as of today? I'll just like share with you. Next slide, please. Okay, so there are many ways to make an Android app. There's native way where you use Kotlin and Java using Android Studio, but there are some other ways to make Android app also: Flutter, React Native, WebView. You can just make an app using WebView. So when I was in Korea a long time ago, they had many apps. They are just web views. So they make like more like website, and then they just make the mobile version of it, and then your app is more like web view. But Yeah, I think nowadays it might not be a wise decision to do it because of different sizes of Android, and I mean you look for performance mode actually as compared to just getting working. Then in Unity also you can make Android apps, especially Android games. Then there's software from Xamarin is from Microsoft. Then you can use that to make Android and iOS cross-platform apps. And then there's this new technology, Kotlin multi-platform, where basically one project base you can make Android and iOS. They can share the business logic. Next slide, please. Okay, so yeah, next. So I just want to share with you about Kotlin. Kira will give you more details in next presentation. Kotlin is adopted by Android and Google since 2017. Next slide, please. Okay, so popularity of Kotlin. This is from last year's survey. You can see it's top 4 languages, most loved language from people like you and me. So the people who voted and took part in this Stack Overflow survey. Next. Okay, so this also shows the evolution of Kotlin in a very short time. It's like just getting more and more popular every day. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are some of the apps built with Kotlin. They might not be 100% Kotlin, but I can say that 70 to 80% of the code base has been changed to Kotlin recently, and all the recent development is done in Kotlin. So if you want to be an Android developer as of today and you want to build native apps, Kotlin is the way to go. Nobody will look at your Java experience anymore. But having Java experience a bit handy because you can understand the legacy code. Next slide, please. Okay, so I mean, Kira will give you more details. So I just want to say, okay, Kotlin is a modern language. It's concise. It's actually made. It's also open source. I mean, the community feedback is very important here. Then every day they roll out new features, and at the same time, it works perfectly with Java. So Java and Kotlin can work side by side perfectly. Next slide. And this is just one example. So here you can see you have a main activity in Android. So this is written in Kotlin. Then it just shows like the syntax looks very familiar to you. Nothing, no rocket science here. People coming from Java background will find it more easy and more intuitive. Next slide. Okay, so let's just look at some basics of Kotlin and Java. Next slide, please. Okay, so on the left side, you can see a Java hello world. Basically, we start with hello world, right? And in Kotlin, it's just a function. So you can see the lines reduced, but that's not the point. But it's just like from hello world you start. So in Kotlin, things are pretty much straightforward. Next slide, please. So I just want to highlight, yeah, next slide. Just want to highlight one thing. So here actually we are making a string variable a, and we are giving it a one value, and then we try to set it as null. But Kotlin compiler will show you an error. You cannot have null value. So I think one of the advantage many people were saying of Kotlin is the null point. You won't have null pointer exceptions. Yeah. So this is like one big advantage people are seeing when they give examples of Java and Kotlin. Next slide, please. Okay, so here again, I want to show you like another example. So in case one, we have a variable string. So we are setting it some value. Then we are setting it to null. So you will get compile time error. So what is compile time error is like your code won't build. Yeah, so there's runtime error. Runtime error is once you compile and build the app, you run on your phone, then it gives you error. For example, like you launch the app in App Store, Google Play Store, and then somebody downloaded and then they got this kind of crash. So you don't want that to happen. So here actually a Kotlin compiler will stop you from null values. In case 2, if you declare this as optional, like put a question mark, then null value is allowed, because let's say I didn't set my profile photo, or I don't have mic, like in Zoom, you see some people don't have mic, right? So it's a null. So Zoom is not crashing. So we can have this kind of nice question mark thing when we think that this won't have this can have value or this won't have value. Next slide, please. Okay, so here actually we can more like do some kind of conversion. So you can see if like I say, okay, my B, I can do this kind of null conditions check, that B is not equal to null. Then I can also check its length, and also I can print out. So this is the way actually you have to do some null checks if you think your value can have null. Next slide, please. Okay, so here also one example. If you want to do some save calls, you can put a question mark and then just put dot length. So if your, let's say here your B is like it doesn't have any value inside, so I mean it will not break or not crash your code. So this is kind of save call. Next slide. Okay, so you can also use this kind of operator. You will see in early Kotlin code a lot, but now people have found a way to get rid of it. Next. Okay, so so this is a new thing in Android, which is called coroutines. These are basically asynchronous tasks. Android used to have async tasks, which is where you can download some image in background or do some heavy job where you don't want to block the UI. So this is new kind of library called coroutines. It's all written in Kotlin, and it's very flexible, and people are using it more recently. Yeah, it's very lightweight, and it's like if you are not good with threads, Java threads, then this is the library to use, which basically underlying the handle threads for you. Next. Okay, so this is one example. So basically what was happening before is we had this kind of async callbacks where we, let's say, do a network request, then we wait for the result, then we do like, for example, database save that result in the database, then we have another callback. So it's like callback chain. But with coroutines, actually we got rid of those callbacks. So our code is sequential. You can see in the below part, your result, you go to network requests, you get result back, then you can save in database. So it's more easy to read. But basically it's doing the same thing. It's also doing async calls, but it's like I will say more easy to debug, more easy to read for new developers or I mean, people who have just started programming. Next slide, please. Okay, so with Kotlin, actually you can do multi-platform. You can make an iOS code with Kotlin. So learning Kotlin is very useful. Then you can do also server side. You can do browser-based applications like JavaScript. You're not good with JavaScript, you can do Kotlin, then it will convert it to JavaScript. And then you can still make Android apps. So you see Kotlin has many advantages. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just one example. You can use Kotlin multi-platform to basically make Android and iOS app together. They will share the business logic, and everything is written in Kotlin, but there will be some specific iOS code you can write in Swift, or Objective-C. Next. Okay, so just give you overview of Android app architecture. When you are making apps, there are certain architectures out there. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's this MVP you will hear many times, model view presenter. Then there's clean architecture. Then there is model view model. I don't have time to get into more details, but I think it's just for your reference. You can Google it and read about it. And then there is some Android app architecture references or blueprints from Google. You can see the samples, you can try them out, but those are more for intermediate learners. Next slide, please. Okay, so I just want to conclude my talk with some of the learning resources. Next. So you can learn about Kotlin itself without any reference to Android because Kotlin is just a language. And then you can also learn about Android specific to Kotlin, like how Kotlin is used with Android. And then you can do many code labs. And there's a YouTube channel also where you can see more updates. But I just want to emphasize that Android is equal to Kotlin first now. So that's why I just want to summarize it and set the stage for next talk. Next slide, please. Okay, so you will have these kind of code labs. So and then you can also have you can join Twitter, where you see I have joined like all these people. They are all Android developers working in Silicon Valley, working in many top European companies. And then you can search for those tags, and you can follow them. All those people, they post a lot of new stuff about Android and Kotlin. They post tutorials, they post guidelines. They also discuss many negative points as well. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, so this is Udacity. On Udacity, you can find free courses. Don't need to pay money first. You can just like sit back, relax, get some popcorns, watch videos, do some coding from comfort of your home. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the Android Nanotech degree. You can also go ahead and get those nano degrees. If you are not going to attend any school, formal school, then you can put it in your resume or on your portfolio. Next slide, please. Okay, this one I got back in 2016. Luckily for me, Google sponsored it, but I think there are many scholarships out there. You can try it out. Next slide. Okay, so these are all, there's this new certification called Associate Android Developer Certification. You can prepare exam and get this certification. It will also help with your job, with your resumes when you are applying for jobs. Next. Okay, so this is, and then you can share your code samples on GitHub, get more stars to your repos, and share what you have done, share with the community. Next slide, please. Okay, so I think here, just like if you don't know anything, you get lost from all the slides. Just go to Stack Overflow and just search for this thing, how to learn Android development efficiently. You can find some answers. So with this last slide, actually, I will conclude my talk. Yeah, thanks so much for listening. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Hassan.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
a good talk, nice talk. You give a complete overview of what Android development is. And so if you guys have any questions for Hassan, you can just leave it in the chat and we'll answer on the Q&A session. So our next speaker will be Miss Krymyzy. She's an advanced Android engineer at Zühlke Group. She's going to explain in us more in-depth about Android development using Kotlin. So let's get to it. Miss Krymyzy, please.
Hello, everyone. Yep. Can we go to the next slide? First, thank you, Hassan, for interesting speech. Hassan have covered what is Android and the whole history. And I would like to dig into what is Kotlin and Kotlin language. So, actually, Kotlin was developed by JetBrains company in 2011, and it runs on a Java virtual machine. And first version was released in 2016. From 17, it's fully supported Google Android language. And right now, the latest version is 1.4. Next slide. And like fun facts about languages, maybe you don't know, but for example, Java is island, Kotlin as well as island. And we have Lombok, which is like framework. And if you are looking for some kind of programmer kind of trip, you can do this, like start from these islands, which is called frameworks or language names. So next slide. Next slide. Hassan shortly talked about Kotlin. And if we say, why do we need to learn Kotlin? Why we have new language Kotlin? Like in my understanding, first, like we had something like Pascal language, then we had C, then we had C++, Java, now Kotlin. It means like every year, if we have some technology, it's getting upgraded. So user understands like what features we need. And in programming languages, it's same. Like you create one programming language and developers understand that we need another functions, or we don't need this, or we have created something not really comfortable to use. So we have upgraded. So right now, Kotlin says that it's very easy to learn and very easy to use language because it's the newest. And what is good about Kotlin? It's safetiness. If you're aware, in Java, a lot of things we have like null pointer exceptions happens, and Kotlin, it's developed that we will not have null pointer exception. And is it debugging in Kotlin? Why? Because the syntaxes is shorter than Java or any other language. Maybe it's comparable with Swift. And another good thing is like, because Kotlin and Java, they run on a Java virtual machine compiler, like they are interoperable. So we can use in one Android project, for example, one class for Java, like, and another class Kotlin. So because it's running on JVM, it's multi-platform. So, and it's native for Gradle and Android Studio. When you download Android Studio, it's already a default Kotlin language. Next slide, please. So first, if we can say about null pointer exceptions, and here we have like nullable and non-nullable variables, which is new in this language. Maybe in Java we didn't have it. Next slide. I'm not sure if you know, in Java we used to create some objects, and some methods was required. It's getters and setters, but in Kotlin, all these boilerplate repetitive codes are going on in background. So we need to write just one line, no need to write another things. And it is improvement that other developers, engineers can read the code so easily without unnecessary like noise. So next code, please. Here, when we override our objects from, when we override our methods or functions from parent class, in Java, it's like longer, it takes longer lines, and it needs to be written. But in Kotlin, it can be shortened, and you can really see how yourself what is the difference writing code in Java and Kotlin. It's one line in Kotlin. Next slide, please. And when we are using, we used to write in Java this method, find view by ID. It means like if we want to find some, for example, button or view, we need to find this view by ID, and it's taking longer time, like longer code. But in Java, as you can see, we can just directly call the ID, and it's going to be shorter and easy to read. Can we go next? And a lot of things as in Kotlin can be written. For example, like in JavaScript, we can initialize some variables or value to the functions, but in Java we couldn't do it, so we had to write like return total here, like if we see it, or like another things just to return. But in Kotlin, if we are returning some value, we can just define it with function. Next slide, yeah. And another thing which is good and what I like it, it's mutable and immutable variables. So mutable means like later when we create some variable, later on while we are working on it, we can rewrite this variable, but sometimes we need immutable, for example. So we want to make sure that's never going to be changed. This is something new came up from Java to Kotlin. And next. And there is like late init and by lazy new keywords, which is not included in Java, but we have in Kotlin. It is, for example, when we use late init or by lazy, when we declare the variable, it will not create it. It will not take any memory. And when in the code we will need this variable, it will be created, so it will take some memory. So, and this is a smart solution for some problems in programming. So next slide. And this is, if we go further, so here like late init, it's just we are creating some variable, which is like multi-thread environment, like just creating variable later. And the next slide. And lazy, it's thread safety. So it means when we use lazy keyword and creating any variable, we are going to have only one copy of this object. So it's thread safety. This is a very big difference of using two different keywords. And next slide. It's useful materials. So as Hassan mentioned before, there's a lot of free courses in Udacity, Udemy, and you can find a lot of examples in GitHub as well. I strongly recommend you to follow Android engineers in Twitter. And there is another website which I love more. It's raywenderlich.com. And you can find there is like very specified examples, but it's more in advanced level, and some free courses there as well. Thank you. Yeah, and this code, this books as well is good while you are using. If you want to learn more design patterns, how to use Kotlin in different languages or from different languages, because the design for every language can be slightly different when we are using it.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Krymyzy. It was such an interesting talk. Now we're going to jump over to our next topic, which is a day in the life of an Android developer. Ooh, such an interesting topic. So our speaker will be Mr. Saurabh. He is a Google developer expert and a senior Android engineer at Viki Inc. Okay, let's just get to it. Saurabh, please.
All right, thank you. Can you go back to the previous slide though? Okay, yeah, that's for later. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Saurabh Arora. I'm a Google developer expert for Android and currently working at Viki Inc., which is actually a video streaming company based right outside Singapore. Even though our headquarters is in San Mateo in US, the entire engineering office is in Singapore. And I've been an Android engineer for close to about 7 years now, and I've been leading the team at Viki for about close to 2 years. So today I'll try to give you an overview of what a day in the life of an Android dev is like, but a lot of the things that I'll talk about can be applied to any developer who's starting off their career and as they progress to their career. It's not going to be very specific to Android. It's more generic. But yes, I'd definitely throw in some Android elements here and there, mostly which have already been covered by the previous awesome speakers you just heard. All right. So next slide. All right. So it's about a day in the life of an engineer, right? Of an Android developer. And I'll be honest, it's not all about coding. You don't begin and end your entire day just coding your day away, right? There's a lot more to it than coding. So let's run through what your day would feel like on an average. Okay, next slide. So first up, right? So the first part of my day, or or some part of somebody's day. Like for me, I'm just going to run through how my day would look like. In most organizations, we actually have these project management tools. And by what I mean by project management tools is sometimes when you have work that you're doing and you need to really keep track of what tasks that you're working on, where's your project heading towards. So like in university, you have an assignment and you split it across with multiple uh, group participants that you have. So you need to really keep track of what a person A and a person B and a person C is working on, what's the progress is like, what kind of issues are coming up into your code as you're writing or in your product that you're building. So these kind of, for this, back in university, even we never used anything like this. So once you come into an organization, you'll see there are these specific tools that are built by other engineers, which really target this aspect. So at Viki, we use Asana, but there are really popular ones like Trello, Jira. I'm hoping somebody would have heard at least one of these, probably Trello. I feel like it's still quite popular in Singapore and definitely in universities, if I'm aware. Even back then, we were using Trello a bit. So this is where I would go ahead and see what kind of task I have assigned. Like this is where I would plan my day or help plan other people's day and about what they're supposed to look forward and what they're supposed to work this day that we're talking about. All right. Okay. Next slide. So as I said, we have a team in Singapore, right? And no app can be built with just one person in mind or two or three. Most companies or most organizations have really big teams. And by big teams, I'm not just saying you have teams across, let's say, engineering, product management, design, UX, your marketing, your CEOs, your CTOs. It's, yes, you have these different teams, but even within teams, you tend to have a lot of people. Unlike projects which we do back in university or as you're learning up, you would want to build or contribute individually. That's not the way we would tackle projects or products in an organization. The Android team at Viki is about 5 people, but I know other organizations who I'll not name because I don't have the permission, but they also have like 40 or 50 or 60 people just contributing to the entire Android source code. And so what it requires to actually build a great product currently in the market, you actually need to have a good, decent dream team, as I would like to call, which would help you to build this product and ship it out. So the project management tools is actually then helping you out with your dream team to make sure you are aware what your other team members are working on, what you should be working on, what's the progress of your project looking like, what are the new things that your team is coming up with. So the entire project management tool with your dream team helps to accomplish that. All right, next slide. And so that's how I start off my day, right? I first figure out, okay, this is what my product members are working on. This is what my team members are working on. This is what I'm supposed to work on. And after this, the second component of my day, this is one component which is definitely never in order. So definitely I would first open my project management tool, but after that, I could or could not be involved in meetings. And meetings are generally with the same team people we talked about. You have your product people. Now, what do I mean by product people is essentially in a product-based organization. For example, Viki. We are a product-based organization because we have one app, which is the main Viki app. And that's all that the entire organization focuses on. That's our product. And our aim is to get it in hands of more people across the globe and make it better each and every day. And also figure out how do we make money to sustain the business. This is slightly different from project. In project management companies like consulting firms, you would see that they have different small teams who are working on different apps. And these apps are for clients or maybe their internal own apps. But so then that's what a project management would be versus what a product management would be. So in our company, because we have product management, we also have UX and design people. So just to highlight out there, when you're becoming an Android engineer or any engineer for that matter, you're only looking at your job would be the technical perspective, which definitely does not cover what your product is supposed to do. I mean, definitely as engineers, we have inputs in this, but this is not the primary part of your day-to-day life or even the primary aim that you're going to evolve as an engineer into. You have what the product is supposed to do, how it's supposed to make money, It has to be how does it look, how does it feel to the user, the end user experience. All of this, you have different team members who are involved in making sure that this is kind of taken care of for you. And this is where meetings are important. You have to get into a room, learn how to communicate your ideas, learn how to listen to one another. And these things are something I believe every individual, as you get into the workplace, these are the kind of skills you will definitely pick up. Even though you might not be particularly confident about those skills right now, there's absolutely nothing to worry about it. These are the skills you will definitely pick up as you go along your working life. So this is something I would wanted to highlight because as you grow into a team lead role, these kind of meetings become more important. But even as an engineer who's just starting off its career in the industry, you will occasionally run into days where one part of your agenda in your daily day as being an engineer involves meeting people. All right. Okay, next slide. Okay, so now you have your project management tools. You've looked up what you're supposed to work on today. You've had your meetings. You've narrowed down what kind of design you're building, what features you're going to work on today, or what kind of bugs are there. Now you get to do your, maybe if you're becoming a developer, probably your favorite part of the day or the favorite task you look towards is actually getting it down and start coding and start writing real production level code. And next slide. And for production level code on Android, the main popular tool that we use is Android Studio. I would recommend anybody who's starting off in Android to actually start off using with Android Studio. There are other tools as well on which you can write Android apps, such as Visual Studio Code or IntelliJ IDEA directly. Back then, we also had Eclipse. But right now, your staple is Android Studio. Other tools are possible, but the easiest way to get you up and running is actually use Android Studio and pair it with your favorite programming language, be it Kotlin or Java. The previous speakers already gave a great whirlwind tour of why you should use Kotlin and how you can find resources or how you can find code labs for Java or to get you started with Android. So I'll skip that part, like not to repeat it all over again. So let's look at the next slide. Once you're writing code and you're done writing your code for, let's say you're building a new feature, like for here, I would like to take an example I repeatedly bring up to help explain people is, let's say you've written a code which is about being able to like an item on Facebook, right? So you're an engineer at Facebook and your task is, hey, you want to build a like feature. So you go ahead and you build a like feature, but you need to be able to verify that this feature really works. And this is where testing becomes important. And what I'm trying to emphasize here is your testing should be in a way that you're not saying simply, hey, I press the like button and I see it likes, and that's it, my job is done. You want to make sure that you have covered all kind of edge cases, such as what if the user presses the like button when there's no network connectivity, all right? Or what if the user presses like and then presses like again? What is your expected behavior? Do you unlike? Do you ignore? These kind of scenarios need to be tested. So in your daily routine as an engineer or developer, your first task, sorry, when you start coding, writing code for that feature or that to fix that bug is actually one half of the puzzle. The second half of the puzzle that comes up is, and that's a daily thing which as engineers we are encouraged to do, is to make sure you write tests and make sure these tests are automated. And again, what I mean by automation is not just that you are manually clicking that button to verify, you are writing code to actually verify the code that you've written. So your code is that piece of snippet which would run repeatedly to actually verify this code that you wrote to click the like button. And in in most organizations, there are three types of testings we do. So it's probably an exercise for people to look up later. I don't want to dive into the details of them, but generally we have unit testing, we have integration testing, and we have UI testing. So that's something we could discuss later in the Q&A if you guys have any questions about, or you could go back and take this as an exercise for you to actually start to learn how to write testing, because that would be a really great skill to have in your budding career as an Android developer moving forward. Right. Next slide. So you're done writing code, right? And you have this great feature which works. We've written the test for it, and and you show that the test works as well, all the tests pass, you validated everything. Now it's the time to actually submit your code to somewhere, right? And what most, like the hands down, the most dominant way to actually publish or store your source code is actually Git. And at Viki, we use GitHub, which is built on top of Git. For anybody who's not really familiar with what Git is, in simple terms, it's actually a distributed system where to allow you to maintain your source code. So the idea being that, let's say you have 50 engineers on the team, they can push, by push, I mean there's a centralized place. All the 50 engineers can actually send their code to this one common repository, as we call it. And all of those 50 engineers can also pull in changes of every individual person who's been pushing their code to this file. And Git also will keep a history of anybody who made the changes. So it's easier for you to see, go back in time and see what was the state of your app or what was the state of your source code that you've written at a given point in time, and also see who wrote this code and what was their thought process by reading the messages that were submitted when this code was being posted. All right, next slide. So then this is where I'm coming now to actually the second part of my day, which is about, I have pushed my code to GitHub, as I mentioned, or to Git. And as I also said, there are about 50 people, right? Like in a bigger team, Viki is 5, but then in a bigger organization, you could have 50 Android engineers actually writing to the same repository or the same place where you want to dump all your source code. And when 50 people are sending files back and forth, you need a way to ensure that the quality of the code that's being submitted actually meets the quality of the organization. Like as a team, we would settle down on standards and protocols and guidelines on what a code push to a central repository looks like. So for this, any code that has to be submitted or merged in actually goes through a code review process. And here, it's important to understand that this becomes a part of your daily day as an engineer, because you're not only sending your code for reviews, you are also getting the chance and the liberty to review other people's code that are coming in. So code reviews is like a feedback cycle. It allows you to learn by looking at other people's code. Hey, how did they write it? How did they tackle this great problem that they had? What kind of coding standards and principles were they using? It gives you an opportunity to learn with them. It gives you an opportunity it provides an opportunity for the committer to make sure there's a second eye on the code, just to see that maybe he or she forgot some edge case, or he or she made some mistake, or maybe there's a spelling mistake, or you feel there's probably a more cleaner or an elegant or a better way to solve this certain problem that this peer of your try to push in. So code review, it becomes a very important part, and this generally, definitely on a daily basis, ends up taking a good 1.5 hour of my time on a daily basis. And it's something I would like to point out, like even when I started back as an Android developer about 7 years ago, right outside university, it was something I was not really familiar with, because that's not a process we follow in universities. You submit your code and then your teacher or your instructor or your lecturer or your professor actually goes ahead and reviews it. There's no peer-to-peer review among your group mates, but this is something which you would face as soon as you start your journey as an Android developer. And it's something which might sound or seem intimidating at first, that there's somebody who's probably a senior who's looking at your code critically. But rest assured, there are no hard feelings. Everybody's trying to improve, and any feedback that is given at that point in time will be a learning and a blessing for you. And you'll be really grateful moving forward once you get used to this process, that these kind of processes exist, because they'll help you become a better engineer. All right, next slide. Yeah, and that was my final slide. So that's how the day would go about. You have your team members, you would look into project management tools, you'll have meetings to finalize on, to make decisions on what you're building next, or what kind of bugs you're fixing, or what is the expected state of your app. You get to coding, then you make sure your codes have tests. Finally, you push them up for code reviews and make sure everybody and you are able to review other people's code. And that's how collaborative teams at most organizations work together to deliver great products. That's about it. And next slide, that would be the final slide. Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, that's it. I think we can open it now.
Okay, thank you so much, Saurabh. It's an interesting topic to see a day in an Android engineer. So now
Yeah.
we're going to start the Q&A session. So because we don't have much time, so I'm just gonna ask one question for each speaker. Maybe we can start with Hassan first. So the first question, we have questions from the participants. The first one is from Pang Tao Han. So the first question is how to get a job as an Android developer.
Okay. So I think, as I told earlier, right? So every tech company, literally every tech company will have an Android app. So yeah, so I mean, it's not that difficult to find those companies. So there will be some early stage startups, there will be some mid stage, then there will be more of established ones like Viki. And I think the way how it works is like you start with internships usually. I mean, don't go for a job because with the zero experience, it's a bit difficult to put you into production code like, right? So you start with some kind of internships in companies, get familiar with the tools, with working with people. Because if I see you, like, if you want to work in a company, you have to talk with people, you have to discuss with people, you have to share how you write code. But if you want to be a freelancer, then that's a different story. So I think start with like finding internships if you have zero experience. Yeah, and I mean, if you want to like prepare your resume or something, I think you can do some projects I mentioned, like Android Nano Degree. It has 4 or 5 projects. You can put them on GitHub so that the people, when you apply for a job, right, so they can go and GitHub and see your code. Because if I don't have confidence in you, in your coding, I will not even consider you for interview. Yeah, so this is one thing. And I mean, getting job is easy if you have experience and you find the right company. But also, I think you need to discuss and meet people, get to know more Android developers, more people in industry. They can recommend you at the same time. If they somehow can see your code somewhere, they think you are passionate, motivated. But I think the final decision will come down to can you code? First thing. Second thing is, can you work in a team? Can you solve the challenges faced by this team? So always, like when you're applying for a job, right? So you have to be appealing to people, like this company is facing some challenges, so you will be on board to solve those challenges, not like just going there and just like doing your job by yourself and not interacting with people. Yeah. So I mean, it's very broad question. I answered a bit differently. I hope it helps. So yeah, I'm not sure is it the right answer, but yeah, I tried my best.
Okay, thank you so much. I think on the chat, Miss Krymyzy also say attend hackathons as well.
Yeah,
so yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very cool. Actually, that's where I get to know many people. So I had attended like a couple of hackathons, and I met like people from many different countries. So it was good to know how the development and developers work from different cultures and how they are sitting together just to discuss the same thing. So yeah, I think this is also very good. And nowadays there are so many online hackathons out there, so many.
Okay, I see. Okay, that's an interesting answer. So, okay, our next question, maybe we can move to Miss Krymyzy. We have a question from Aung. He said, I'm curious about developing an Android application using Java or Kotlin on Android Studio versus Dart on Flutter. So which one you prefer and what's more popular in real world for developing an Android app?
I think in Android development, real world is like native, which is Kotlin. It's not Flutter, it's not Dart or React Native. It's just pure Kotlin and pure Android. You can just download Android Studio and write. Follow the code labs that Hassan shared in the slides. It will be good enough to start.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the answer. Maybe if you want to refer, if you guys want to refer back to the slides, we'll be having this this event recorded on YouTube will be launching sometime around next week. So you can see the slides on YouTube for next week. So last question for Mr. Saurabh. In what stage of development do entry and higher level developers spend most of their time in? From Samuel Ho Kwan Yi.
So for entry level, and I think for them, most of your time would definitely be spent on the coding aspect and making sure your code is being reviewed by your peers. That's for entry level, but once you progress, once you've been in an organization for close to about 6-7 months, you will definitely start picking up the ability to review code for other people. So I would say even for entry in about 6 to 7 months, definitely it's writing code, making sure your tests are there, and reviewing the code of other folks is where you would spend a bulk of your time. As you grow up the ladder, definitely meetings and working with other teams across the board would definitely be the next step you would take up.
Okay, sure. Thank you so much, Saurabh. I hope all of you guys are clear. Now, because the Q&A session is done, we're gonna reverse it. Now the speakers have made some questions to ask you guys, the participants. So I will let my teammate Shafiq, maybe he can pull up some polls and you guys can answer these questions accordingly from the slides and the presentation earlier.
Okay, sure. Let me just turn on the poll. Okay.
So there are a few polls, questions from the speakers to test your knowledge.
Okay, the poll is launched now. You can just click the options to answer.
Guys, don't get it wrong. This was my first slide. I mentioned something. But I think, yeah.
Okay, most of them mentioning 2007 and 2008.
Oh, we're having a tie here.
Right.
Oh, I did a bad job.
Okay, let me release this. Release the result.
But I think all of them, if they are 20 years old, I think they will be like 5. How many years old they will be in 2007? They will be 7 years old, right? That's like too young. Too young to remember. Yeah, actually that was my motivation to change my major from electronics engineering to computer engineering when I saw the first iPhone. I think that was also back in 2007. Yeah, Android. And yeah, so yeah, that's where I changed my career totally.
Okay, so we have the next poll. Okay, for the correct answer is
2008.
2008. Okay.
Yeah, 2008. 2007 was the first beta launch. So if you search on Google, I mean, beta launch was out there. Many people were trying already, but in 2008 they launched official first 1.0 version. Yeah.
Okay. So 2008 was the correct answer. I see there are like 10 people, 9 people was right.
Yeah.
Okay, so next poll, which company manufactured the first Android device? 10 people answered HTC, 6 people Samsung, and 3 people LG.
Yeah, I think they got it right.
Okay.
I don't know like why they, because it will be confusing, right? Maybe people are thinking Samsung will be the leader, but I think HTC was used to be very good. Yes, Taiwanese company, right?
Yeah, used to be.
Yeah, used to be.
Okay, next poll, next question. Each and every version of Android is associated with a dessert name. What dessert is associated with Android 11? Okay, interesting. Let me check.
So this a bit tricky question, I would say, but I think this is where I think many people like I'll tell later when the poll ended. So it's a bit tricky. Yeah. So, but it's almost Christmas time, right? Next month, so almost December. So yeah. So yeah.
Okay, the poll is done. 9 people answered New York cheesecake.
One person answered Christmas cookie, and 6% answered none.
So Android, I think it became confusing for people to recognize which version is it. So Android started numbering them from Android 10. So it's not any desert name. It's just Android 11.
Okay.
So they wanted to make it simple to remember. Otherwise, KitKat, you have a Lollipop, you have like so many things
Oreo.
out there, right? Oreo. So you don't know which version is which. So they wanted people to easily remember.
Okay. So the next question.
Yeah,
this is a bit tricky.
Yeah, this is also tricky, very tricky.
So Ms. Krymyzy and Mr. Hassan has explained about Kotlin. Do you guys know which company?
And we'll remember this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Which company developed Kotlin?
Yeah,
One
I think they
person answered.
remember.
Yeah.
Oh, they are Oracle fans also. Maybe from TikTok they heard, right? TikTok was supposed to be bought by Oracle.
I mean, if Oracle wins, they'll be so happy.
Okay, 12% answered JetBrains.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. Wow, you guys really listen. Nice. But the Oracle hardcore fans there, shout out to you.
Yeah, Oracle has been suing Google a lot, I think. Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this will be the last question, Shafi.
Yeah, this is the last question for interaction. Yeah.
When did Kotlin become the official Android OS language?
I showed it one in my slide, but I'm not sure what Kira has the answer because that's when they introduced it, like in the annual Google I/O conference every year in May. It's like held in US.
It's actually worth watching that clip of when they introduce Kotlin, like just that 2 seconds, 2 minute snippet. It's amazing. You'll see the reaction in the audience and how well coordinated the announcement was. Like it's an example of how to give a presentation and how to time your animations with your words.
Wow.
How to hype up the audience.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 12 people answer 2017.
Yeah, it's correct.
Yes, 2017.
Nice.
8 people answered 2018. Okay, 1 year difference. That's still okay. 2017. Okay, I think that's all for the time for the questions right now. We would like to thank you all our 3 speakers, Mr. Hassan, Ms. Krymyzy, and Mr. Saurabh. Thank you for taking your time to talk and share with us about Android on a Saturday night. So next we have an announcement. We love to hear from you first. So if you guys have any feedback for participants, you can scan the QR code, go to that link and fill in the form so we can do better in our future events. So I'll just give you about like maybe 5 seconds or 10 seconds to scan the QR code real quick because we're 8 minutes past our end time. So yeah, and our next announcement, we'll be having Android Study Jam. So after this event, most of you most likely will be like curious about Android and stuff. So we have Android Study Jams for all of you guys. You can just sign up with that QR code there and go to that link. So we have 2 sessions. The first session is on 30th November, which is on Monday. And the second one is 21st December. And our session will be done on Zoom, which is an online, and it will be done 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. And our track is the new to programming track. So for those of you who don't have any knowledge whatsoever about coding and programming, don't worry, just sign up. We can learn together about Android, Kotlin, and much more. So I'm just gonna give you guys maybe 10, 15 seconds to scan the QR code and sign up to our event. Yeah, thank you too, Saurabh. Have a good Sunday too. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you everyone, every participant for joining this session. Have a good weekend. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you so much more to all three speakers. And we'll see you on our next event. We hope to see you on the Android Study Jams. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.